Welcome to PFT OT on Yahoo Sports. The 100th season of the National Football League begins on Thursday night at Soldier Field. The Chicago Bears hosting the Green Bay Packers. Historic rivalry, Peter King. But some new faces, specifically the new Packers coach, Matt LaFleur. What a baptism by fire to go into the home stadium of one of the teams with a fine defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL. What do you expect out of the Matt LaFleur offense with Aaron Rodgers running it, with the Bears as the first opponent?
You know, I think it's really an interesting sort of display of the NFL's sense of humor here. Last year, Matt Nagy's first game was an absolute debacle loss at Green Bay, you know, in the opener. And so what is it this year? It's the new Packers coach going into Soldier Field and having his baptism by fire, obviously in Chicago. And it's going to be really tough. It'll be the best defense, I believe, that the Packers play the entire year because they're fresh. Khalil Mack is healthy. And they have a lot to atone for after the way last season ended. And they're playing at home. It's the opener Thursday night. I think this will be the best and toughest game that the Green Bay Packers have to play this year, Mike.
Yeah, and you may as well get this one out of the way early. You got to go to Chicago anyway. Although ideally it would be nice to have Aaron Rodgers get some experience in the offense before he takes on a challenge like this one. And for the Bears, the challenge is to go back to 0-0. After what they did last year, unexpectedly great team, that heartbreaking loss in the playoffs, how much of that trickles in to 2019? I know Matt Nagy has done everything he can to slam the door on last year, but it seems like only Bill Belichick can truly forget about what happened and make a team forget about what happened last year and focus on this year. How big of a challenge is that for the Bears to forget about how last year ended and reset and go forward in 2019?
I would have said normally that it's just another year because I think we on the outside oftentimes, I went to New Orleans and I asked about 15 people about the playoff hangover and how the last 2 years ended. And it's so funny. Cameron Jordan just sort of laughed at me. And, he basically, and I forget his line, but it was basically, that's a media thing. You're inside this team. I mean, we're here. We got a really good team. We're excited, all that other stuff. But I think the one thing that worries me a little bit about the Bears is that they kept that kicking sword of Damocles hanging over their head the entire offseason. And then the first thing they do is come back and 8 kickers have to try a 43-yard field goal. 6 of them miss. And it's almost like they've never gotten over, the double doink. And in my opinion, if this guy Eddie Pinheiro misses a kick or two early on, all of a sudden that becomes a real live ghost in the machine. And that becomes something that really that stays from last year to this year. Look, the other 52 guys on the roster, I mean, that is a double-digit win team. But you just wonder how much the kicker is going to impact the Bears season.
And you're absolutely right. The pressure already is enough on a kicker, especially if you're talking about a late opportunity to win or lose a game. You throw what happened last year on top of it. Just think if the game on Thursday night comes down to a kick attempt by Eddie Pinheiro against the Packers. You win if you make it.
How about
you
from
lose
43
if you
yards?
miss it. Yeah, and Al Michaels and the rest of the world is hanging on every move. And if you survive in that setting, then you're Steve Young after Super Bowl 29 and the monkey's off the back and you move forward. But if you fail, it just continues to cycle and you got to find a new kicker. And then the next kicker's got to deal with that pressure. And they need this guy to make his kicks early so they end this narrative before it becomes even bigger, Peter, than it's been.
Probably the best thing that happened to the Bears, though, this summer is when the Vikings upped the ante for Kari Vedvik and gave a 5 for him instead of the Bears, because I thought the Bears should have done that at the time. The Bears should have just napalmed this job search and give it to this guy who can punt and kick and who looked like an absolute lock to be good. And obviously 3 weeks later, the Vikings cut him. But I think the only other question I have for the Bears, and I raised this, Mike, in my column this week, the last 7 games of last year, this team averaged 19.7 points per game. Okay, that's not good enough in the NFL today. With that defense, you're going to win 7 or 8 games if you never score in the 30s. Okay, you will, because your defense is going to be that good. But you get into the playoffs, and having to hold teams to 13, 16, 17 to have a really good chance to win is nothing but dangerous. And so that's why I think this offense is really going to be under the microscope early. They have simply got to play better than they did down the stretch last year.
Yeah, and teams have had a full offseason to study what Matt Nagy did last year, where Mitchell Trubisky's weaknesses may be, where his strengths are, what to force him away from, what to force him into. And it could be that they have a real challenge moving the football this year because teams now see exactly what they're trying to do. All right, we're trying to do as many of these as we can throughout the season. It's PFT OT on Yahoo Sports. Check us out all season long. He's Peter King. I'm Mike Florio. We'll see you next time.